And turning now to the 20th St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, which is underway in Russia. The scale of economic cooperation between China and Russia is growing, but to boost it even more, both countries are looking at setting up an offshore yuan center in Moscow and a clearing bank holding yuan capital. Some sources indicate these projects could be formalized by China's central bank by the end of June during Russian President Vladimir Putin's trip to Beijing. And our correspondent in Moscow, Daria Bonachak, has more on Russia-Chinese trade dynamics and where they might head next.
Neighbors and business partners, China and Russia are looking to boost their economic cooperation even further. But fluctuating oil prices and the depreciation of Russia's currency, the ruble, make for a tough business environment. Those conditions meant bilateral trade slid by almost a third in 2015. But as the first signs of growth emerge in the first quarter of this year, a 3.6% rise year-on-year, experts estimate volumes may reach $70 billion by the end of the year. But the cheap ruble isn't all bad news, especially for Russian-made products.
From an economist point of view, a very good time for Russian producers and exporters to become more competitive, to invest, to expand their production, to export more non-resource goods and services.
In the past several years, the share of Russian exports to China compared to its own imports of Chinese goods has been sliding. But now it nearly evened up. In May this year, China exported over $3 billion worth of goods to Russia and imported just under $3 billion of Russian-made produce. The structure of Russian exports to China has to change if the country wants to take advantage of the momentum.
This is especially important for the Russian side because for Russia, this closer cooperation with China is not just a means of trying to sell more commodities to China, but it's a way to access a large and growing market and to have a gateway for exports of manufacturing goods as well. And for probably high-tech cooperation.
Russia and China have also discussed setting up an offshore Chinese currency center in Moscow and possibly appointing a clearing bank with Chinese yuan capital there too, to help improve the quality of trading relations.
Some of the things that we need to look for in the next several years is, apart from growing trade turnover, also other indicators such as greater investment cooperation between Russia and China. The scope there is tremendous, but also things such as cooperation in the financial sector and the use of each other's currencies in bilateral transactions.
Russian President Vladimir Putin will be leaving the Kremlin here in Moscow later this month on a long-awaited trip to China. And experts hope that the currency center and the clearing bank will be among several bilateral agreements set to be inked during that visit. Daria Bondarchuk, CCTV, Moscow.